You might think your Reticle in Marvel Rivals doesn't matter, but every ability and weapon in this game works extremely differently, to the point where a standard Reticle on, say, someone like Raccoon would mean you'd literally miss if you have perfect tracking. And we can take advantage of the advanced Reticle features to get more information as we play. For example, with Hawkeye, the best Reticle for him is this, because this circle will highlight the radius of his charge. Yeah, you don't need to aim right on target. There are so many more high-level reticles we can have for every single character, and I'll be explaining all of them in this video and why they're the best. This is Venom's best Crosshair, and there are two special features for this Crosshair. First, let's talk about the distance on enemies. If you're past 15 meters, Venom does not do attacks. This is the biggest problem Venom players face, is knowing when they're in range. Now, if you just line this Crosshair up, as soon as the bottom reaches the player's feet and you aim at their head, which is where you want to aim for because that will do bonus damage, you will now be in radius. As we can see, the line is right in line with the player's feet. That means we can hit. Now, if it's not in line and it's over the feet, then it won't hit. As soon as it's in range, it will hit. Now, there's another feature about this Crosshair. It is specifically made the circle slightly larger because you actually want to aim more so to the side and not right in the center to hit more headshots. This is what happens if you hit in the center. You don't get all completely headshots, as you can see. However, if we line up the head with the edge of the circle, now we hit basically 4 headshots. And yes, for those wondering, this is not going to work for tall characters. As you can see, it's lining up with their feet, it's not hitting. But a trick with Groot is if the top of the bottom line lines up with Groot's, well, that area, then it will hit. As you see, it will hit now. If we go further away, it will no longer hit. So as long as it lines up with, but basically draw a big thing on Groot and it will hit. This is Peni Parker's best Crosshair. Looks weird, but I'll explain why. The middle dot, pretty straightforward. That's exactly where your main attack is going to go. But the bottom red line is where the mine will go when you drop it. So, see where it's aiming here? That's exactly where it will go. If I aim closer, no matter where you aim, it will always track on the red dot. So this is a great way to know exactly where your mines will land. This is Moon Knight's best Crosshair. The reason is simple. The outer circle is where you want to aim when you're tracking moving targets, and the inner crosshair is when you're shooting stationary targets. So this is stationary, and then if we aim at the outer radius, we'll always hit targets long range. So this is definitely the best Moon Knight Crosshair that I spent a long time working on. As you can see, no matter what the distance, as long as you aim at the outer circle, you are going to hit the target right where they are. Now, if you try and hit right in the center of the screen instead, you actually miss. So that's why this Crosshair is better than the default one specifically for Moon Knight. Next we have Doctor Strange. Now I know this looks a little strange for his Crosshair, but let me explain. Look at his attacks. It's actually more like a shotgun. And this radius is perfect. So no matter what distance you are, the damage will always be in the center of the circle. This is the perfect accuracy. Now we've got a Crosshair in the middle as well, just to help you center your aim. But realistically, you want to know exactly when your shotgun blast, because it is basically a shotgun, is in the radius. So this is going to be the most optimal range on this particular target. Any further, and we're actually going to start missing shots. So this is a really good way to gauge right distance and how to get full damage. Going for body shots on Strange makes more sense because he is a no critical shot damage, so that's something to think about. Next we have Groot. This one is super simple. Groot does not have a very long attack range, so basically you just want a very simple Crosshair that explains exactly where the center of your screen is. I like having two colors because it just helps my brain to realize where the center is. But you could do it with a dot or a simple Crosshair, but this is definitely the best. This is Thor's Crosshair. I know it looks a bit silly, but let me explain why. Most of the time, you're basically going to do attacks that are either aiming right at the center of your screen or basically right up close where you don't really need to worry too much. But there is one ability. Look at this. It throws angled attacks. And this Crosshair is the most perfect angle I can get to make sure that it lines up. So that, look, if I aim here, I know I'm going to hit them. If I aim here, I know I'm going to hit them. This means that I'd have to worry about being too accurate with aiming at the center of my screen. I know that if those blue lines are over the top of an enemy, it is going to hit them, even if it's on the side. So it's really useful to kind of be a little bit lazier with my aim and still hit. This is Hulk's best crosshair. Looks a bit weird, but there are a couple reasons why. Firstly, the main sort of flying attack like this, look at the size of it. This is perfectly the right size, so I know that even if I click something like that, it's still going to hit them. So this is the size of that ball, right? It's not the only reason though. Up close, the hitbox for the punch is not as small as you'd first think. If I hit here, it's still going to hit. If I hit here, it's still going to hit. So just make sure that you don't have to worry about being too accurate with it. But there's one other final reason. Bruce Banner's main pistol is kind of weird. It's kind of like a weird little like bullet travel time, and I find that it's best to aim like you have the head in between the crosshair and the circle, and then it hits in the head. It's really, really strange, but I just feel like it's like if the head is in the window on the corner, then you're actually gonna hit. Up next is Captain America's. Sometimes there's no need for a goofy crosshair, and Captain America is an example. Just a nice simple crosshair like this will do perfectly. This is Magneto's best crosshair, and there are two reasons why. Firstly, his attacks have a large hitbox, which means that circle, as long as it's on the target, it's going to hit them. It doesn't need to be super accurate. The second reason is the bottom line. Now, the attacks have a range of 25 meters, and this bottom line has perfectly been angled so that when it touches a player's feet, you know you're in the right radius. Take a look at this. As you can see here, the player is 30 meters away. It's not yet touching the player's feet, but once it is in line with the player's feet, it will now hit. Not in line, won't hit. Now in line, will hit. Currently won't hit, but as soon as it's in line with the feet, it will hit. Won't hit, will hit. Obviously with smaller characters it's not perfect. If it is touching the feet of any character, it will definitely guarantee a hit at almost maximum distance. This is Punisher's best crosshair. The main focus is of course the small crosshair in the middle for the assault rifle. You just need one that's really tiny so that you can get the most sort of accurate aim. But then we have the secondary circle, which is opaque a little bit. That will be the shotgun blast at 10 meters, which is kind of the max distance you want to be. So, you know, once we're at 10 meters here, we're going to make sure that we're doing the most amount of damage, which is pretty useful. This is Storm's best crosshair. There are a couple features of this crosshair to explain why it's so good and useful. So Storm's attacks are very interesting. They're always at different angles, but no matter what, they always fit inside the circle radius. So even if you're really far away, as long as you hit in the circle itself, you're going to hit the target, which is really, really important. And because it has slightly slow travel time, you can also aim at the edge of the circle when you're hitting moving targets, and you're going to have a better chance of hitting people. Now, I've also made this crosshair slightly transparent because when you want to aim at multiple targets, you want to see as much as you can as possible. So having a better view of how many characters are stacked in the center of your screen is going to get you the best results. So I think this is the best crosshair for Storm, honestly. This is Hawkeye's best crosshair, and it has two features, one of which I think a lot of people aren't even aware of. Firstly, here's a look at what it is in-game. As you can see, you can copy that for yourselves. Now let me explain what's special about this crosshair. So, first things first, obviously, you want the best, most accurate initial crosshair in the center because you want to be hitting headshots of this. So you want it to be as small as humanly possible. We've gone for a green color so that it's contrasting with the enemy color. Now the outer circle is very special. So everyone knows that if you hold your aim on a target, it will charge up and do more damage, right? But you don't need to aim on exactly where the target is. There's a radius, and I've specifically worked out the radius that needs to happen, and it's within this circle. So as long as you aim within the circle, it will build up the charge. So this makes it really easy to get a charge from a distance and then hit a shot. So you can easily track targets long range like this, even if they're moving. As long as they're in the radius of the circle, it will track, which is incredibly useful for a Hawkeye player. So you can track it like this and then flick to the target. This is Hela's best crosshair. It has two features that make it better than normal crosshairs. First, here's a look at what the settings are for the crosshair. can see them here. Now let me explain why this crosshair is good. Hela's main attack is not a small projectile, so having a very tiny small reticle is not necessarily going to help. This dot is the perfect size. I've perfectly practiced it to be the exact size of the projectile, which means no matter what distance we are, because it's hit scan, if I'm aiming on the target, it will hit. So this allows us to be a little bit more confident with our aim. We know we're going to hit as long as this dot is on the target, because the projectile itself is a dot. It is not a crosshair shape. It's a dot shape. So this is better for aiming. As long as it's slightly on the target, it will hit. And if it's just outside a radius, it won't. So this is the most accurate crosshair. Now, the extra lines are just a little bit of an indicator for me to know when to use my ability, the orb ability. So if I aim at a player's head from 0 to 30 meters, it will always hit them. So as we can see here, as I walk towards the target now, look at how it's always going to hit them as long as I keep aiming at the head. Even right up close. Now, as you get further and further away, this isn't going to work because the throwing distance will start getting higher and higher. But from 30 meters onwards, it will work. From there, you're going to have to do some practice to really get good at it. This is Black Panther's best crosshair, and it really is for one main reason. The spear has quite a significant bullet drop, so I've specifically worked on this crosshair. As long as you aim the bottom square on your target, the spear will always hit. Even if you're very close, it will still hit. If we keep going back, it will still hit, all the way to the maximum distance, which is 50 meters. So it's still hitting. Let's ping the target to see their distance. Currently 42 meters. Still hits. Still hits at 45. Still hits at 50. And then once we're out of the radius, it will no longer damage the target. So yeah, as long as you aim at the square, you'll always hit the spear no matter what. Here's a look at the crosshair for Black Panther so you can credit yourself. This is Squirrel Girl's best crosshair, and you may be wondering, how do you even get this? Well, you need to go on Squirrel Girl specifically in the settings. Once you've selected that, go to your reticle type and put it as default. And when you do that, it will give you a unique reticle for Squirrel Girl that's going to help you sort of aim the nuts at longer distances. And then up close, of course, you do have the center dot, which you can still customize. But I think this is pretty good. The default one is really, really nice. This is Magik's best crosshair. I know it looks a little goofy, but there's a very good feature that is going to make it worth it. Now, if you didn't know, the maximum dash distance is 16 meters. Now, as long as we aim on this left line and line it up with the target, we will always hit with the dash. We'll never have to have a missed dash again. Up close, it works. Far away, it works. All of the way up to the max distance. As long as we aim on this left line, it will indeed hit. So to create this particular crosshair, you can have a look at the settings here. And I got some opacity on the crosshair itself. Because otherwise it looks a bit goofy. This is what it looks like if you don't have the opacity. Yeah, kind of crazy. This is personally my favorite Black Widow crosshair. Now, I've played Black Widow a lot. I basically did a Black Widow only challenge, and I think that just having a crosshair that actually represents the bullet size is better than a reticle, because you know that if it's on target, it's actually going to hit. Basically, this will always hit as long as it's actually on target, right? It's the smallest, most accurate thing because, well, that's what you kind of need. You need to be pinpoint accurate with Black Widow. Nothing more to say. Here's a quick look at it if you want to copy it, but just, it's pretty simple. This is Iron Man's best reticle, and there are 3 main reasons why. The first being is this angled reticle here, which perfectly lines up with the laser beam coming out of Iron Man's chest. We don't need to aim at the dot. Instead, we can aim anywhere on this line and it will ensure that you hit the target. You don't have to worry about being perfectly accurate when you realize you just have to make sure the laser beam goes through the target, which is a lot easier to do when you have this massive line to aim with. The second reason is this almost transparent circle. This is to help you line up the blast radius. Now sure, if you're really high in the air, you're going to hit pretty much anything. However, if you're on the ground and you try and hit in front of you, you're not going to hit. So this circle makes sure that you know you're actually going to get the hit on the target. The third reason is the color. I've gone for the brightest, most vibrant yellow color. This is going to contrast perfectly with both the blue laser, the green laser, and also the color of the enemies. Here's a look at the crosshairs so that you can make it yourself. I'll just go through the settings here so that you can see them and copy that in your own game. This is Spider-Man's best crosshair. You're going to need some precision for some of his abilities, but one thing that isn't needing to be so precise is his secondary attack, which is a large web. Now sure, up close you can be pretty inaccurate with it and still hit, but when you're flying through the air or you're at a distance, there is a max size that it's going to be, like a max radius that you're going to want your crosshair. So this outer circle signifies the max sort of bullet size of this web attack that you can sort of gauge while you're in the air. So even if I'm like hitting long range, I can still hit at the edge. Like as long as I'm in this circle radius, I'm going to hit my web no matter what I'm doing, which means we can just be a little bit more confident with how we're aiming. Here's a quick look at what the reticle looks like in the settings menu so that you can copy it for yourselves in game. The important part is the color settings here. You want to set the dot colors separately and use custom colors for the circle to make it a nice sort of transparent white. For Scarlet Witch, you don't want anything too crazy. A nice simple crosshair will do because you're just going to auto-target anyone in a 20-meter radius anyway. And for this attack specifically, it has a very small hitbox, the Exxon missile, so you're going to want to be pretty accurate with this. So a nice simple crosshair will do. This is Winter Soldier's best crosshair. A nice simple reticle is decent for the primary fire. Anything inside the center of this is gonna hit. So this is good for getting headshots because the bullet size is pretty large. Now the second reason is relating to the grapple. The max distance is 20 meters. So once we're past that, we can't reach this player, right? Now this radius means that at 20 meters, as long as they're in the circle, we will grab them. So let's go into 20 meters. As we see, it's right at the edge. We're still going to grab them. So as long as the player's in that circle, we're going to grab them. Here's a look at the crosshair in game so you can set it yourselves. You can adjust the opacity of the outer circle as well if you like. If you go to this section here, I've got it on 18, but you could go even lower if you wanted. And then here's a full look at these settings again. This is Star-Lord's best crosshair. To explain why, let's take a look at what happens to Star-Lord's spread. If you fire it for a long time, the spread just kind of gets worse and worse.
Oh boy.
However, for the first 5 shots, it stays in this center radius. So the best way to play Star-Lord is instead of firing like this in a hole and bursting a whole mag and getting the maximum spread, you want to fire and have a short pause halfway through. So this is me unloading a full mag and letting the gun go crazy. If I were just to slow down my aim a little bit, then it will be within this circle radius. And I can get the kill before reloading. So this is why this crosshair is good. It just shows you where the initial spread is. You can see what it looks like. The settings are on screen right now. This is Namor's best crosshair, and I'll explain why. First, let's take a look at how it's designed, and then I'll go through the 2 sort of features that make it useful for Namor. So, obviously, the dot is the perfect size for the hitbox of the main attack, so up close, you just aim at the dot. However, once you start getting past like 25 meters, bullet travel time will start hitting in. Now, honestly, it will start noticing the bullet drop around here, right? 40 meters, okay? You're not going to get headshots anymore past this distance. As you can see here, it's going to be a body shot, which is a shame because the headshot does a lot of damage. So, we aim at the top of this line here, and now we get headshots again. And honestly, for like almost the furthest distance, just aiming at the top of the line will make sure that we still get a headshot, as you can see here. Now, there is even more drop as you go further away, but these kind of sight lines are pretty hard to find in the game. I don't think you're going to be anywhere more than 70 meters out. So, like, as long as you aim along this blue line as you get further away, you're going to make sure you're getting headshots. Because if you aim for the main dot, look, it's not even going to hit anything. It's going to hit the ground. Iron Fist is another hero that, in my opinion, just doesn't really benefit from any specific crosshair. I mean, he has such easy lock-on range. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. If you've got any other suggestions, let me know, but I can't think of anything that could benefit Iron Fist besides just a very simple crosshair. Once again, Wolverine is another character, and you'll see with most melee characters that just a normal crosshair will work. You know, there's not a crosshair that will tell you the specific area of where you can grab characters or something. That just comes with skill and practice. And I think trying to rely on a crosshair for Wolverine won't really help because, yeah, you got to just learn the right areas to grab players, and a crosshair won't help with that. This is Psylocke's best crosshair. The reason for it is it perfectly lines up with her attack patterns. Her basic attack has 4 blades. This whole circle basically signifies where the attacks are going to land, right? And up close, of course, just using the main dot in the middle is going to be useful. Now, the secondary attack perfectly lines up with the dot and the crosshair. So this is basically a perfect representation of Psylocke's attacks. Whether or not that's going to be useful to you in game or not, I'm not sure, but I've made sure that it perfectly lines up regardless. So you know exactly sort of what distance you need to be to get every single dart hitting. Here is a look at the settings for Psylocke's crosshair so that you can set it up for yourself in game just like me. This is Mr. Fantastic's best crosshair. Firstly, he has blue arms, unless you got a skin, so going for a yellow, which contrasts with the red, and also his arms is good, but also his punches are pretty big, so this circle radius signifies where you need to aim to actually hit someone, and this is going to help you understand how to drag. Like, you don't need it to be super accurate. If you hit a player here and just drag it into the circle, it will hit them. So this is going to allow you to maximize the amount of hits you get on multiple targets. Once you realize you don't need to be super accurate with the hits, it just needs to be within the circle radius. To make this crosshair, you just can set it up like this on screen. I've set it up perfectly so that the circle matches the attacks basically almost to the T. You could make it a bit smaller, the circle radius, if you wanted it to be a bit more precise, but this is the actual boundaries of the attack. This seems to be Loki's best crosshair, but I'm not sure. I'm not much of a Loki player. What I've noticed, though, is it is a 3 meter blast pattern. However, if you aim at the feet, you can't fire 3 meters out and hit it. You need to be about here. If you aim from the right side, it needs to be about here. So basically, this circle is the best representation of when you're going to definitely hit a target, no matter what angle you're hitting, whether it's from the left, right, bottom, or top. Even though the outer bounds are larger than that, in some specific scenarios, the actual attack range will feel shorter. So this is the best crosshair to make sure that you're hitting. If you're in this circle, you're going to hit them. And here's a look at the crosshairs. You can make it yourself in game. This is Mantis's best crosshair, and for a very important reason. When Mantis gets a critical headshot, her abilities will basically be recharged. She'll get these leaf things, and she can use her abilities more, right? Trouble is, she's kind of small, which means she needs to aim up to hit headshots. And the way third-person shooter games work is the bullet comes from the player and not the camera. So aiming here isn't necessarily going to be a headshot. For example, we're not getting a headshot right now. We're not getting headshots, even though it's right in the center. About 50% of those shots were not headshots. However, if we aim here, the crosshair, the reticle is perfectly angled towards Mantis, which means we will get a headshot every single time. Now, as you get further away from targets, this isn't going to be the case. The perspective will be sort of not as drastic, so at that point you want to aim for the center. But as you get closer, you're absolutely going to want to aim for that corner reticle, as you can see. This is Luna Snow's best crosshair. You want a pretty accurate crosshair for hitting shots. So we've got a pretty normal reticle, but it's bigger and thicker than normal because when you move side to side, your attacks are going to go in a line because you're actually firing a small burst of attacks. So this reticle better helps highlight where your attacks will go while strafing. Sometimes it's better to stay still when you every time you shoot so you can get more accurate shots. But if you're healing like a big batch of your allies, then having that feature actually allows you to know that you're going to be able to heal both players with one hit. Now, I know that you can fully heal a teammate and then heal through that teammate as well, But in the case that multiple teammates don't have full health, this reticle will help you know when you can use one shot to basically heal multiple teammates at once. It's also yellow in color because it better contrasts with your teammates' color. This is how to create it. I'll show you on screen now all of the settings for this crosshair. This is Cloak and Dagger's best crosshair. Looks a little bit weird, but I'll explain why. This is the perfect radius to know when you're in range of a target. So the max distance on Cloak's attack is 20 meters. So before 20 meters, you'll do damage, after you won't. Now once you're in the 20-meter radius range, it's not necessarily auto-aim, but as long as you're in this circle radius, they will take damage. So this makes sure that you're actually damaging the player you want to, and you're not like somehow missing. It's not hard to miss, but this will just give you a little bit more confidence. Secondly, when you go to Dagger, you'll have a smaller circle, and this is just useful for making sure you're targeting the right character, because it also auto-aims if you didn't know. But if you're like this, it might kind of get a little bit confusing. You know, it's actually targeting both players here. It's like perfectly in between both, and the game doesn't really know which one to do depending on how the enemies are moving. So this circle just ensures that whoever's in the circle will be the one that you're targeting. As you can see here, it will target the person in the circle first, like that. As you see, if I move, it targets them. Now, once one player is dead, it will immediately target the other player. So pretty good. This is how to create this crosshair if you would like to do it. These are the settings here. As you can see, you definitely want some transparency on the circle, otherwise it can be a bit annoying. So make sure to check out those settings. This is Rocket Raccoon's best crosshair. There's a very specific reason it has been placed like this. I'm going to have to explain Rocket Raccoon's attacks first before explaining why we've got this crosshair. Rocket Raccoon's attacks are kind of hit scan, but they are delayed. What that means is, as I'm firing here, look at how the bullets take some time to travel to where I'm actually aiming. The common misconception here is the bullets are not traveling through the air. That is not bullet travel time. There's a literal coded delay between when you press the fire button and where the shot actually activates. So it's always behind your aim, but it's actually hit scan. This means when you're attacking a stationary target, it's fine, you can aim right in the center. But look what happens if we try and aim in the center on a moving target. That was perfectly tracking the target, but it hit nothing. It's because the attacks are delayed and the shots that are firing are behind where I'm aiming. So these lines have perfectly been made to the point where you aim on each of these lines depending on what side you're tracking the player's movement, and then it will catch up. So you're basically aiming ahead of where you should be shooting. The results look like this. And because this is hit scan, it works at all ranges. So you don't have to worry that someone's further away and you need to have different tracking. You just have to aim at the same point. It's so much better like this. This will change the way you play Rocket Raccoon and how you aim massively. And if you're wondering why you can't hit shots before, this explains why. So here is how you do the crosshair for Rocket Raccoon. This is the best crosshair for Adam Warlock. He has hit scan attacks just like Hela, and the attack size, the actual bullet, is really small, which means you're going to want to be pinpoint accurate with him. There is nothing more to it than having a very small accurate crosshair that explains exactly where your aim is. I'll show you if you want, but any small crosshair is good. We've specifically gone for 6 crosshair radius and 10 crosshair length. This is the best crosshair for Jeff the Shark, for a few reasons. First of which being, his beam is blue, so yellow is a very nice contrast to that. Secondly, you're not just healing right in the center of the crosshair. Everything traveling towards the crosshair will also heal the target. So this yellow line allows us to know exactly if a player is in healing radius. Very, very important. The next thing is Jeff the Shark's attack. The circle you see on screen will signify the blast radius. Now, as you can see, sure, you can hit next to them and do a bit of damage, but if you actually hit on the target themselves, you'll do far more damage to the target. So this blast radius ensures that you actually hit the target and not just on the floor, where it won't do as much damage. Here is a look at Jeff the Shark's Reticle, so that you can put it on for yourself. This is Invisible Woman's best Crosshair. Yes, it's slightly invisible, and not just the fact that she's Invisible Woman. You're healing teammates, and you're attacking enemies through each other, right? The special thing about her abilities is it pierces through, so having less clutter on your crosshair allows you to get more information on like how many players are actually in line of your crosshair. Firstly, the specific length of crosshair has been chosen because your attacks are larger than what may seem. So even if you hit like on the side, on the right or the left, you're still going to hit that target. So yeah, this is the best crosshair for Invisible Women to ensure you know who you're hitting and to make sure you're actually hitting them. It's very straightforward, pretty simple crosshair. You don't need anything too crazy for her anyway. So that's how to create it, as you can see on screen. So that's all of the crosshairs in the game for all heroes. I think you're going to find a lot of use out of this. If you did, please consider subscribing. If you didn't, tell me why, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you there. Cheerio!